Hello, welcome to your channel. Thank you for watching. Follow and subscribe LGBT plus facts and figures.
Health. 1 in 8 LGBT people, 13%, have experienced some form of unequal treatment from healthcare staff because they're LGBT. Almost 1 in 4 LGBT people, 23%, have witnessed discriminatory or negative remarks against LGBT people by healthcare staff. 1 in 7 LGBT people, 14%, have avoided treatment for fear of discrimination because they're LGBT. 7 in 10 trans people, 70%, report being impacted by transphobia when accessing general health services. Nearly half of trans people, 45%, said that their GP did not have a good understanding of their needs as a trans person, rising to over half of non-binary people, 55%. 90% of trans people reported experiencing delays when seeking transition-related healthcare. Trans people of color also experience transphobia from trans-specific healthcare providers at more than double the rate of white respondents, 13% compared to 6%. Home and communities. Only half of lesbian, gay and bi people, 46%, and trans people, 47%, feel able to be open about their sexual orientation or gender identity to everyone in their family. 3 in 10 by men, 30%, and almost 1 in 10 by women, 8%, say they cannot be open about their sexual orientation with any of their friends, compared to 2% of gay men and 1% of lesbians. More than 1 in 10 LGBT people, 11%, have faced domestic abuse from a partner in the last year. Almost 1 in 5 LGBT people, 18%, have experienced homelessness at some point in their lives. Half of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic LGBT people, 51%, have experienced discrimination or poor treatment from others in their local LGBT community because of their ethnicity. Black, Asian, and minority ethnic LGBT people are about twice as likely to attend LGBT-specific venues or events as white LGBT people, 45% compared to 22%. 3 in 10 LGBT people of faith, 29%, take part at least once a month in a collective activity connected with their faith. A third of lesbian, gay and bi people of faith, 32%, and 1 in 4 trans people of faith, 25%, aren't open with anyone in their faith community about their identity. At work, more than a third of LGBT staff, 35%, have hidden that they are LGBT at work for fear of discrimination. Almost 2 in 5 bi people, 38%, aren't out to anyone at work about their sexual orientation, compared to 7% of gay men and 4% of lesbians. 1 in 4 trans people, 26%, aren't open with anyone at work about being trans. This number increases to about 2 in 5 non-binary people, 37%, who aren't out at work. Almost 1 in 5 LGBT staff, 18%, have been the target of negative comments or conduct from work colleagues because they're LGBT. Almost 1 in 5 LGBT people, 18%, who were looking for work said they were discriminated against because of their identity while trying to get a job at university. 2 in 5 LGBT students, 42%, have hidden their identity at university for fear of discrimination. More than a third of trans students, 36%, and 7% of lesbian, gay, and bi students who aren't trans face negative comments or conduct from university staff because they're LGBT. Almost half of LGBT disabled students, 47%, have been the target of negative comments or conduct from other students. More than a quarter of LGBT students, 28%, say they were excluded by other students for being LGBT. Students intend to be more open about their sexual orientation and gender identity in higher education, with overall levels of openness increasing from 64% at school to an expected 82% at university or college. When researching university choices, around a third, 31%, of LGBT plus students paid specific attention to LGBT plus services. These included mental health support services, 47% extremely interested, and university or college reputation in equality and diversity, 46% extremely interested. 30% were extremely interested in LGBT plus societies and 21% were extremely interested in support networks for LGBT plus students. Hate crime. 2/3, 64%, of LGBTQ plus people had experienced anti-LGBT plus violence or abuse. Of these, 9 in 10, 92%, had experienced verbal abuse, 3 in 10, 29%, had experienced physical violence, and 2 in 10, 17%, had experienced sexual violence. Only 1 in 8 LGBT plus people surveyed had reported the most recent incident that they had experienced to the police. Less than half of those who did report their experience to the police were satisfied with the response. Only 1 in 3 respondents who wanted or needed support were able to access it. 1/3, 34%, of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic LGBT people have experienced a hate crime or incident in the past 12 months, compared to 1 in 5 white LGBT people, 20%. 2 in 5 trans people, 41%, have experienced a hate crime or incident because of their gender identity. Education. 42% of LGBT plus school pupils have been bullied in the past year, double the number of non-LGBT plus pupils, 21%. 48% of pupils have had little to no positive messaging about being LGBT plus at school in the last year. However, pupils whose schools had positive messaging about being LGBT plus also had reduced suicidal thoughts and feelings, regardless of whether they are LGBT plus or not. Half of LGBT pupils hear homophobic slurs frequently or often at school. 7 in 10 LGBT pupils report that their school says that homophobic and biphobic bullying is wrong, up from half in 2012 and a quarter in 2007. However, just 2 in 5 LGBT pupils report that their schools say that transphobic bullying is wrong. Just 1 in 5 LGBT pupils have been taught about safe sex in relation to same-sex relationships. 2 in 5 LGBT pupils, 40%, are never taught anything about LGBT issues at school. Almost 9 in 10 secondary school teachers, 86%, and almost half of primary school teachers, 45%, say that pupils in their schools have experienced homophobic bullying. Almost all teachers, 96% in secondary schools and 91% in primary schools, who have addressed lesbian, gay or bisexual issues or different families received no complaints from parents for doing so. International. 70 countries criminalize same-sex relationships. The death penalty for same-sex relationships is either allowed or evidence of its existence occurs in 11 of these countries. In more than half the world, LGBT people may not be protected from discrimination by workplace law. Most governments deny trans people the right to legally change their name and gender from those that were assigned to them at birth. A quarter of the world's population believes that being LGBT should be a crime. Sport. 7 in 10 football fans who've attended a match have heard or witnessed homophobia on the terraces. 1 in 10 LGBT people, 10%, who attended a live sporting event in the last year experienced discrimination because of their sexual orientation and/or gender identity. 3 in 5 fans believe anti-gay abuse from fans dissuades gay professional players from coming out. Over half of football fans think the Football Association, the Premier League, and the Football League are not doing enough to tackle anti-gay abuse. 17% of lesbian, gay, bi, and trans people have experienced and 49% have witnessed homophobia or transphobia in sport. 66% of lesbian, gay, bi, and trans people felt that there were problems with homophobia and transphobia in sport and that this acted as a barrier to LGBT people taking part. 1 in 8 LGBT people, 12%, avoid going to the gym or participating in sports groups because of fear of discrimination and harassment.